What's going on, Packer fans? Happy Friday. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day podcast. Hope you are set up for a tremendous weekend. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Of course, we are counting down the moments until we get to Packers-Steelers on Sunday, but I do want to take some time today to go over my grades for both the offense and the defense for this past week against the 49ers. If you're wondering, unfortunately, no Ben Fennell today. Hopefully, Ben Fennell Fridays will be back next Friday, so you're stuck just with me today, but we've got a lot of stuff to discuss because I thought the grades this week were really, really interesting, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Let's kick things off on offense. I don't think any of the top three offensive players are really going to surprise you that much, at least the top two. Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, number 1 and 2 on my list this week for grades for Green Bay. I'm not even going to necessarily bore you with the details. You saw all the plays that Davante made. You saw how Rodgers and Davante came up clutch. I mean, that throw that Rodgers made to Davante, you've seen it over and over, but on that final drive of the game is just beyond, like, it looks like a two-seam fastball where, like, he's throwing it and it almost, like, seems to tail at the end. It's out of this world incredible that he's able to get it up and over the linebacker, Fred Warner, who's one of the best in the league. And then for Davante to basically make like this 360-degree catch, all of it's just perfect. And then they come back, make another completion over the middle. Davante's smart enough to just give himself up and get down. You've got, back shoulder fades in this game, just all of it. And then Davante, and as we've heard on the telecasts this year, apparently spent time watching Lamar Jackson, and now he moves like Lamar, like, He's getting better, which is so scary. And, I talked about this earlier this week, but, was Davante Adams featured too much? Not in this game. Certainly not in this game. He was the best option that they had on the vast majority of plays. And Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur in this offense took advantage of it, and rightfully so. When you've got somebody that's that good and he's just beating up on opposing corners who can't stop him, yeah, throw that guy the football. He was phenomenal this week. Rodgers was completely on. I mean, from the beginning of the game, hitting those deep balls to Allen Lazard and then another one to MVS. The throw he had to MVS in the end zone, which MVS called the greatest, pass he's ever caught. And it was, the crazy thing is the, best pass that MVS ever caught. And it was probably like his third or fourth best throw in that game. Like, that's how good Aaron Rodgers was in this one. And, of course, with the offensive line being a little bit banged up and, wanting to get rid of the ball quicker, and it kind of changes up your game plan. I thought the receivers were tremendous in getting off of the, off of coverage to give Rodgers those easy reads. And I thought Rodgers did a great job of taking advantage of those and getting the ball out of his hands and letting his playmakers do the work. And even the deep plays, right? Like even the shot to Lazard, like right in the beginning, like even those, like he wasn't taking like 7-step drops. He was still getting the ball out of his hands quick, which was just amazing to see. And again, Rodgers and Adams completely, phenomenal games in this one. The number 3 on my list was actually MVS. I thought MVS had a really nice game. He did have that touchdown in the back of the end zone. He also had the deep ball early in the game. He also had a play, and going back to is Rodgers maybe looking to, Davante a bit too much. There was one play where it was actually a pass interference, the one where Davante kind of like tried to like circle back and like the defender hooked him. There was no chance of it being completed, but the defender didn't know that. He still hooked him. They called the penalty, and it was a nice pickup on a pass interference play. On the other side of the field, I believe it was Josh Norman. Don't quote me on that, but whoever it was, MVS just completely smoked the corner on that side of the field. Double move. I think it was like a hitch and go or something, but he just completely annihilated the corner on that side of the field. Had Rodgers been looking left on that play, he would have had MVS wide open with like 10 yards of separation, which would have went for like a 75-yard touchdown. I want to say at least something like that, assuming they were able to connect on it. But MVS, even with that play, like obviously that was a really nice play on his part, graded really well. But, he still had the touchdown, still had the deep ball, and he continues to find himself in advantageous situations. Of course, he did get banged up, so he may not play this upcoming week, which would definitely be a loss, but I thought that was a really positive game for MVS. As far as, some of the lower grades, there wasn't anything egregious. Royce Newman was my lowest graded player with a negative 0.5. And then Josh Myers, negative 0.25. And then Yash Nijman with a negative 0.2. The big thing with Yash is he had like a negative 0.65 grade on the very first drive, somewhere around there. And then he graded, positive the rest of the game. Like you could just tell, he had some nerves and jitters in that very first drive. And then after that settled down, we've seen the clips of David Bakhtiari coaching coaching him on the sidelines. And after that point, I thought he did a really nice job in that game. Again, some benefit of some chips and some, combo blocks and Rodgers getting rid of the ball quickly. But I thought, let's just put it this way. I think if any of us could have signed up for Yash having a very slight negative grade against Nick Bosa in that 49ers front, I think all of us would have sprinted to whoever was offering it and say, yes, a million times over, give me that grade for Yash in his very first start against a very talented San Francisco defensive front. Again, Newman and Myers with the other two, again, I don't think either were terrible. John Runyan Jr. was an interesting player. He actually graded, he was going to be the top graded offensive lineman for the second straight week in a row, talking about all the awful calls by the officials throughout the entirety of the game. On the first play, that play to Devontae, we were just talking about Rodgers over, Fred Warner and Adams making the 360-degree catch, basically. On that play, Runyan gets beat and has to completely grab his guy and basically drag him down. And it was in front of the ref. It was clear. It was obvious. And I do not believe that if Runyan would not have held him, that Rodgers would have got that pass off. So just another, thankfully in that situation, Green Bay, there was no call on that play. And certainly Green Bay was due based on a couple of the other calls early in the game. But that's just another terrible one where it was right in front of the refs and it was clear and blatant. But again, outside of that play, Runyan was great, but that could have been, if they call that, the clock is way down, you're 10 yards, you're at your own 15, even Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back from that situation. So that could have been a catastrophic penalty on John Runyan Jr. But again, outside of that play, I thought he had a very, very nice game. As far as the defensive side of the ball, I was anticipating grading the defense all week long. I finally got to it. I started on Wednesday, finished it up on Thursday. When I first watched the game live, I thought the defense played a really nice game. And I thought, certainly going in the first half, they were about to have a shutout before the big kick return to end the half. Going back to the shutout in the second half of the Detroit game, they almost had 4 straight quarters of shutout football. I thought it was trending in the right direction. Even in the second half, you had that, bizarre Jair penalty. There's the Eric Stokes penalty. You had the drop that they challenged that should have been a drop. I thought there was a play where Jimmy Garoppolo threw it, which could have been backwards on that final drive, which would have been a 10-yard loss. And I thought Green Bay contested some catches too, where San Francisco just made plays on the ball. And even though Green Bay contested it well, they still caught it and give them credit for that. But I thought they played a nice game defensively. I thought it was a really nice step in the right direction. Then I rewatched, the condensed version on Game Pass and, for my second time through, and I felt the same thing. But I've been anticipating watching this all week to see, all right, was it fool's gold? Was it really good? Were there some issues still? And it was a little bit of both. And probably more on the disappointing side, to be honest. First and foremost, the defensive front is just underwhelming, a mess, frustrating. Kenny Clark was awesome. And Kenny Clark wore down at portions of this game. I mean, he played, 62 snaps, I want to say, all but 8 snaps in this game for the defense, which is insane for a defensive tackle. Just absolutely insane. You could tell there were times where, he just didn't have anything left to give. He was literally carrying that defensive front on his back, and you just didn't have, full energy at 62 plays. Of course you're not going to. But what he did, resetting the line of scrimmage on multiple occasions, getting into the backfield, helping force that fumble by Jimmy Garoppolo. Without Kenny Clark, I shudder to think where this defensive front would be right now. And listen, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, not easy matchups to start this season, right? You've got, Teron Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk in the first game. Penei Sewell played really well in the second game. And now in this game, you get Mike McGlinchey and then, of course, Trent Williams, who might be the best tackle in football right now. So they've had some tough matchups so far. Gary and Preston got nothing going in this game. Preston had a couple really nice plays, no question about it. But he also had a lot of plays where he was just stuck. And again, he's beating his head against a wall in Trent Williams, but couldn't really get much going. I thought Rashawn Gary really struggled against McGlinchey, and he got into habit again of wanting to go around McGlinchey instead of trying to go through him. He's got to convert speed to power. He's got to have a better plan at the point of attack, and he just didn't in this game. And it was apparent, and it was frustrating to watch. I thought Tyler Lancaster played well. I thought he had one of his better games in some time. I thought he not only did he have a pressure up front, but I thought he held up well in the run game. Kenny Clark, as I mentioned, played great. Just about everyone else was awful. Kingsley Keke has been one of my worst graded players through 3 games ever. I have to look at it. I don't know if anyone's ever graded as poorly through any 3 weeks in my 5 years of doing this as Kingsley Keke through 3 weeks. He is at a negative 1 point something in all 3 games this year already. To give you an idea of how poorly I've graded Kingsley Keke so far, and in my opinion, how poorly he's played so far, he's played worse than Kevin King and Dean Lowry combined so far this season, who are my second and third lowest graded players so far this year. Keke's been worse than both of them combined. Last year, Preston Smith was my lowest graded player on defense through 18 games last year. Through 18 games with a negative 4.55 grade. Next was Kevin King with a negative 4.5 grade. Kingsley Keke, through 3 games, negative 4.5. Basically the exact same grade as my worst overall grade through 18 games a season ago. Keke has it in 3 games. He has done nothing against the run. There are multiple plays, and I mean multiple plays, where he's getting just launched off the line of scrimmage. I mean, just no chance. He can't hold up against anything right now. And as a pass rusher, zilch. Just can't get anything going. I don't know how you continue to play him at all, much less as many snaps as he's getting. I mean, you would think that the patience is running thin, but the other issue, oh, by the way, I mentioned Tyler Lancaster, Kenny Clark obviously played well in this game, but Dean Lowry was terrible as well. He was my second lowest graded player behind Kingsley Keke in this game. Like, the next time Dean Lowry strings together some sort of pass rush move, he did have the one play where he stunted and then did like a spin move and the quarterback was right there, which was a nice play. No, you don't take anything against him from that play, but the next time he strings together a pass rush maneuver will be his first in years. And he's not winning with power. He certainly doesn't have speed. He's just a guy up there right now. And again, some of this is harsh. I get it. These guys are trying hard. And I trust me. I want all these guys to perform well. I hope all 53 guys on the roster and all the practice squad guys, I hope they all become Hall of Famers. I'm definitely not rooting against any of these guys. I want all of them to do insanely well, and obviously the Packers to do insanely well. But right now, Kingsley Keke, Dean Lowry are awful. They're flat out awful. And, that is a problem because, TJ Slayton, Jack Heflin, probably not ready. Lancaster is certainly limited in the amount of upside that he's going to give you, and he generally will have more neutral to slight negative graded games. This was a slight positive. And you've got Kenny Clark, which is great. Preston and Gary have been okay at times, but better offensive tackles are certainly going to give them trouble. And Jonathan Garvin and Chauncey Rivers look like practice squad guys. They just don't have the guys up front. And I thought the intensity was better. I thought this team rallied to the football better. But when you don't have the guys up front to get to the quarterback and get pressure, it makes things so hard. And kudos to Kenny Clark for all he did to really make this defense tick. And when he's going well, it makes everyone's job easier and things are going to be better because Kenny's playing well. If he all of a sudden struggles or gets hurt because he's playing 62 snaps a game in a 17-game regular season and, plus playoffs, man, they're just beyond screwed at that point. Now, to be fair, Za'Darius Smith will hopefully come back healthy at some point, which would be a huge boost. Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith aren't going to face some of the top tackles every week for the remainder of the season. And again, Kenny Clark's been playing great. So I think there's still some opportunity there. But there's a lot of guys that just aren't even remotely close to getting the job done right now. And unless something changes, that's going to be a problem come playoff time. Now, on the positive side, I thought the linebackers played well once again. It's not anything crazy, but no negatives here. Oren Burks has really caught my eye in limited playing time this year. He's much more explosive. There's a play he got sideline to sideline, and as fast as a linebacker I've seen maybe in the history of the Packers. He is an explosive, fast player, and I think Green Bay is going to have to find ways to get him on the field more. we'll see. Chris Barnes is a little bit banged up. They decided to use Ty Summers, but Burks has something to give this team, and I want to see him in hopefully some more, whether it's blitz situations or whatever the case may be. I think he's going to be in some of those more nickel and dime packages when it's obvious passing downs. And I'll just be the first to say I am absolutely here for it. I think Devondre Campbell's had a nice start to the season. Eric Stokes graded in the positive again. I thought Jair, I know some people thought Jair struggled in this game, giving up the touchdown and things like that. He had a phenomenal grade for me. My highest graded defender this week was Jair. Obviously, the insane interception, sticky in coverage throughout the day. He had the penalty, which, he did a great job of getting to the quarterback. I don't think there's anything that should have been penalized on that play. Just another vintage Jair Alexander performance. So some positives still on defense. I think the linebackers, Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, I think there's some positives to take away, but unless that front seven starts getting more pressure and holding up better, it's going to continue to be an issue. And I think, we'll learn more against the Steelers because the Steelers' offensive line isn't good at all. And maybe going against a lesser O-line will help Green Bay out and maybe they can get some things going in the right direction. So we'll see in this upcoming week, but there's still definitely work to be done. And I still have some concerns over that defensive front. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it as always. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.